Look at 1 Timothy 4:16 with me. It says, pay constant attention to yourself and to your teaching. You see, the flame, the temperature. Pay attention to your zeal in teaching. It says, persevere in these things, for by doing this you'll save both yourself and those who listen to you. Yes, share the good news of peace with zeal. Now, in the following video, note how a couple realized that the flame had gone out. They still had some glowing embers left, but they now find a way to fan the coals and regain their fiery zeal.
I don't remember when our routine service day became so, well, routine. Our zeal wasn't what it used to be. And we were finally starting to notice. Not everyone wants to listen. We just didn't want to be the reason. It didn't take much research to find great ideas and set a few simple goals. Like working with those who encourage us. With Ryota and Ami, we're always talking about how we can reach the heart. We got back to basics. Be friendly. Listen. Let the conversation progress naturally. Try to share an appealing scriptural thought. And keep trying. Our zeal can attract an honest person to the truth.
In the video, what wildfires or problems did the couple face that sucked the oxygen out of their ministry?
He really likes his illustrations, doesn't he, Kenneth Flodin? Bit overkill, if you ask me. So yes, Kenneth Flodin there, a helper to the teaching committee. He's taking us through the symposium item, Be ready to share the good news of peace. Maintain your zeal. Yes, Jehovah's Witnesses apparently have a problem, at least in some cases, with their showing zeal in the preaching work, or having zeal for the preaching work, or both. But interestingly, what we have is a series of dramatizations that show just how regimented and codified and planned out the preaching work of Jehovah's Witnesses is. It's not something that springs purely from the heart, where people can do it their own way or decide for themselves, you know, whether they want to even be involved in the preaching work. This is something you must do, and it's something you must do a certain way. Now, in the 2020 convention, we had the story of Jade and Nita essentially delivering this message of how Jehovah's Witnesses should go about essentially coercing people into joining the faith. Thumbnail here, if Tibor is gracious, to a video summary of the 14 steps that I counted. The story of Jade and Nita, how to turn someone into a Jehovah's Witness in 14 steps. I list them one by one, that the processes that are being used and are tried and trusted means of manipulating people and commandeering their minds effectively. The Jade and Nita series puts these techniques front center with zero shame. This newer dramatization seems to be a less interesting version of that. It seems to have been filmed in Asia. It's obviously dubbed over. But all of the methods, well, not all of the methods, but many of the methods that we saw showcased in the Jade and Nita dramatization are just there on full display. And anything that isn't included in the dramatizations is overtly said by the speakers, either before or after the dramatizations get shown. For this particular dramatization, what really stood out to me was this part.
It didn't take much research to find great ideas and set a few simple goals. Like working with those who encourage us.
So they're making it a goal to work with people who encourage them, which obviously means not working with people who don't encourage them. I found that very interesting because that's how subtle the various grades of shunning are in the Jehovah's Witness group. So you have the full-on shunning that comes with disfellowshipping and disassociation. You also have shunning in the form of marking, which is a bit complicated to explain. But then you have shunning because someone is bad association. They're not doing everything that is expected of them, but you're still supposed to treat them as your brother. And here's an example of what is effectively shunning because someone is bad association or they're dragging everyone down. They're not considered encouraging to be around. And if you think about it, if someone's not being encouraging or someone isn't encouraging to others, it might be because they need encouragement themselves. So apparently this zeal that Jehovah's Witnesses are supposed to have for their ministry must be prioritized over helping people who need encouragement.
Hebrews 6:10. You familiar with that? Of course you are. But it does not say Jehovah does not forget the number of return visits you make. It does not say he does not forget how many Bible studies you conduct. No, it says he does not forget your work, your effort, and the love you showed for his name. Our zeal for the ministry demonstrates that we have a deep love for Jehovah and Jesus. If, like the couple in the video, you detect that your routine of service is becoming, well, very routine, then fight fire with fire. Maintain that fiery zeal. Be ready to share the good news of peace.
Those were the rousing concluding words of Kenneth Flodin, who wants Jehovah's Witnesses to have more zeal. It doesn't seem to occur to him that the problem might be that a lack of zeal is caused by being forced to do a job that is frankly boring and subjects someone to no end of rejection. As human beings, we don't like rejection, do we? We don't like constantly having to peddle something in people's faces that they don't want, or the vast majority of people don't want. So it's only natural that many Jehovah's Witnesses will struggle to summon zeal for this job that is so unappealing and so frustrating. But yeah, apparently it's the problem of Jehovah's Witnesses. It's not the problem of the work itself. It's not a problem of being asked to peddle nonsense to people and confront people on their doorsteps and try to persuade them to change their religion. It's the problem of the individual witnesses. It's their fault if they can't summon enough zeal. I did just want to comment on the following words.
Hebrews 6:10. You familiar with that? Of course you are.
Are you familiar with that? Of course you are. Who isn't familiar with Hebrews 6 verse 10? Kenneth Flodin can just throw any verse at you, I'm sure, audience, including those of you watching who are Jehovah's Witnesses. Hi, by the way. Kenneth Flodin can just spit out any verse, and of course you'll know what it says in that particular part of this massive, massive book or collection of books. This particular thing that Jehovah's Witness speakers repeatedly do, it's not just in the talks, it's in the dramatizations as well. Often when characters in dramatizations are referring to a verse, rather than simply say, let's turn to Hebrews 6 verse 10, they'll say something like, well, remember what it says at Hebrews 6 verse 10. And psychologically, what that does is, if you're watching this as a Jehovah's Witness and you're really, really wanting to live up to expectations, you are then feeling bad and you are feeling guilty because you don't know off the top of your head what Hebrews 6 verse 10 says. You know, I like to think I've remembered a fair number of Bible verses, including which chapters and verses they are. It's information that's stuck in my mind. Quite frankly, I could do with that brain space to remember PIN codes. I would gladly sacrifice it if I could. But yeah, some chapters and verses, some scriptures and their actual chapters and verses are still lodged in my brain. And maybe they're helpful in making my videos, who knows. But don't expect that, Kenneth Flodin. Don't expect everyone to know which verse. I would be surprised if even Kenneth Flodin can remember verses in that way, so that you can just fire at Kenneth Flodin, oh, remember what it says at 1 Thessalonians 2 verse 3, and he'll immediately know what it says. It's a very patronizing, condescending technique, and I see it all too often in Jehovah's Witness propaganda.